whether that's sex or cannabis, have such a multitude of items and vessels in which you can consume, and alcohol just didn't. And so it seemed, with this new wave of millennial experiential driven consumers, something else had to be done.
Mel, thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about your company, Smith & Sinclair, and we're also going to talk about the ups and downs of business. But first of all, for our audience, tell us about I know your company, but tell their audience a bit more about you.
So Smith & Sinclair is all around making adulting more fun. That's our mission, and we do that through innovation in the food and drink space, primarily in innovating in alcohol. It's interesting, as an industry, alcohol became quite stagnated. You can kind of only do it in three ways. You either drink it liquid, you drink it frozen, or you might indulge in a Jello shot. Whereas other similar indulgent industries, whether that's sex or cannabis, have such a multitude of items and vessels in which you can consume, and alcohol just didn't. And so it seemed, with this new wave of millennial experiential driven consumers, something else had to be done. So we launched with a range of alcoholic gummies, which are actually patented. They're the only sort of solidified alcohol in the consumer space. So they're Haribo that get you pissed, essentially. And then
And are they that strong? Would they?
So they're half a shot each. We actually used to make them stronger. We reduced it to make it more mass market applicable, and to be able to generate revenue through sort of more mainstream retailers who aren't exactly going to market like gummy shots. They also taste really good. So instead of having like a Haribo, we do a berry daiquiri that's made with all natural flavorings. It's, summer berries, dark rum, bitters, and then it's coated in a black and pink peppercorn sugar coating. So it's a really delicious dessert almost. It's got lower calories, it's completely vegan, and they're fun. Like, they're fun after dinner party favors. They're fun before a night out. They're fun during a night out if you don't want to go to the toilet every 5 minutes.
How did you start it though? Like, what did it start in London? Did it start somewhere else? What way did you start it all?
So it started in London. Myself and my co-founder were friends at the time. He was a chef. I'd been in sort of music and theatre for years, specifically with PR in the last year, and we saw this trend moving towards dating nights in London. Which were all really boring, and they were all quite stagnant, and they were all really forced and speed dating or contrived.
Sitting at a table quick,
And I'm obsessed with board games, so we used to host board game nights at my flat all the time. And one of the nights, like 30 people showed up, and my flat was probably the size of this couch, so they couldn't fit in. And so I thought it'd be fun to make this a dating night. Board games are such a sort of nostalgic part of our lives. And it could make you feel a bit less inhibited because you're playing, and play is something that we sort of do less and less as we get older.
It's too serious now. Everything's so serious.
And we're really, we're in a social construct as adults where people don't like to embarrass themselves. People aren't shameless. Kids are shameless. And so we basically took over a bar on a Wednesday night. They gave us the space for free, and we put board games everywhere, blankets on the floor, and the first night sold out just through word of mouth. But everyone got there and immediately bottlenecked at the bar, because being inhibited as adults, they weren't willing to sort of sit on the floor or get to know someone without a drink.
That's what the blankets were for?
Okay. So everyone needed a drink, but the bar was like this big, and so it meant that no one really played games for the first hour, because everyone needed a few drinks in them to kind of feel what I would call like socially lubricated.
To settle the nerves and the lot.
And so I said to Emil, can you make me something that's going to instinctively kind of get people in the mood of playing like a child? And so he came up with the idea of almost creating like a pick and mix shop. So on arrival, people started getting these paper bags that were pick and mix striped bags that were empty. And then around the space, we had these pick and mix jars with, neckties saying they were gin and tonic, berry daiquiri. And he made basically a more matured version of a Jello shot. So it wasn't that kind of like slimy down the hatch type thing. It was really a pâte de fruits, like a classic French recipe, and they were boozy. And so when people came in, they knew, okay, I have to fill my pick and mix bag. I've got to...
Instead of rushing straight to the bar.
Like there's something to do. I've a task at hand. And then on eating one or two, you definitely felt more relaxed. And so you didn't feel the urgency to sort of have a drink in your hand, or just, have that point of reference in a conversation. Like, people were also really open to sharing. So people would eat half, they'd share it with someone else, and it meant that social lubrication happened a lot quicker. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were so popular. And then we started getting requests to make them, because the people who would come to these events were Londoners.
Yeah.
They all had jobs in agency work, advertising, events. And so people were inquiring about the gummies specifically. And so we both kind of quit our jobs. I was working for a company I really didn't enjoy, and he was agency anyway. So we could take time out to do a 3-week market stall on Berwick Street. And we made about £3,000 in 3 weeks. So there was clearly people who'd pay.
Yeah. Well, I always think that some of the best businesses come from things like that, because, you know, like, people go, you could have gone, right, we want to make alcohol sweets, and you just put them out there and see what happens, right? Where at least this way, you did something. You were doing one thing, and you kind of thought, oh, look, people are actually more interested in the sweets than they are in coming to the board games. So now it's really kind of, we've got something here. So it's nearly like a tested market.
Yeah, and I mean, we've always, with our business, never had our blinders on to what we should be looking out for. And for example, like the gummies are a great product, and they were our primary product for 3 years, but you could see the trend moving away from kind of forced alcohol. You know, brands like Seedlip were getting massive cut through for being a non-alcoholic alternative.
Yeah.
And because we want to be making adult more fun, it's all around the experience of what drinking stands for, which is like socializing and letting loose and relaxing. And so the breadth of our product range is now extended into other items that add fun to drinking, but not necessarily alcohol. So we've got tablets that you can drop into, whether it's a gin and tonic or just a soda water, and they flavor it passion fruit, rhubarb, elderflower. We're about to launch our blackcurrant. We've got a peach Bellini, you know, and they change the color, and it's just, it feels like molecular gastronomy. It feels like when you're a kid playing with a science kit.
Yeah.
And then we've got a whole range of edible fragrances, which are to like spray over the drink and really enhance through the sense of smell. And
I wasn't too sure when I saw the fragrance. I didn't know if it was to put on you.
Yeah, so it had a dual purpose.
Yeah, okay.
So the first range, we were like, it was called Lick Your Scent. And the idea was you can put it on your drink, or you could wear it and get it licked off.
Okay.
But people didn't really get that. So we're just sticking to the drinks.
So we said we were going to talk about the ups and the downs, right? What are some of the downs? People love hearing the downs of companies because they can relate to them.
90% of the business is a bunch of downs. I'm kidding. I mean, the first one was a market stall. Market stalls are brutal because it was the midst of winter in 2014. It was freezing. You have to set up before 7 a.m. because they want you pre-congestion zone.
Yeah.
They want your cars out the way. So we were lugging like a 6-foot marquee in the back of my iGo at 6 a.m. into central London. You set it up, you set your table up, and then you just stand there because we weren't allowed to sell alcohol before 12. So then we just stood there, you know, and then Emil went back to cook. So I'd be on my own, just on Berwick Street, sandwiched between sort of the French guy selling bread and the fruit vendor, trying to hawk nothing until midday.
You could do nothing until 12 o'clock. So you're just, if people are approaching, what's this? Well, this is
come
what they
back
are.
at 12.
Come back at 12. Really?
Yeah.
And how long were you there from? Like, you were there from early in the morning till what time in the evening?
Well, we were actually selling out so quickly. We could only make so many in our flat. So we were selling out by about 3 or 4, but you're not allowed to pack down until 5.
Yeah. So you've got another hour at the end.
And then,
good complaint.
Yeah,
good complaint.
but you know, it's freezing and you're standing for, 14 hours a day, and then you're packing it all down, you're going back, you're cooking more gummies.
A couple of the gummy bears yourself.
Yeah, well, it doesn't keep you that warm.
No.
But that's hard, and people are rude because people, for whatever reason, we're built on a culture where a market stall is more of a bartering system, it would seem.
Yeah.
So like you set a price and then people try and negotiate, and you're like, well, you don't go into Topshop and negotiate. So then it forces you to kind of understand your pricing structure, learn kind of diligent sales tactics.
So how much were you selling them for at the time?
£1 a gummy.
A pound a gummy, and they'd try and barter you down?
Yeah.
Just sell them at 2, and then when they go £1, you go, done.
Or you say £2 and they walk away.
Yeah.
It's funny, people love to give feedback, but when you're at the beginning of your business, your ego is so fragile because it's risky, the vulnerable position you're in, you want it to work so much, and then people will be like, that's disgusting. I've had people try and spit it back out at me and give it back to me in their hand, and I'm like, you're a grown-up.
I know, yeah, but I suppose you can't really be precious when it comes to things like that either, can you?
No, but it's brutal, it's hard, it's hurtful, and you have awkward run-ins, people try and steal off your market stall.
Yeah.
It's, we would put out like a display one, and by the end of the day, they'd always be gone, even though loads of people touched them. It was pretty gross, but it's hard. And then, probably the next hard hump was we set up a website and we had an order of 20,000 that came in really quickly from Imbibe Live, who are a big alcohol trade show in the UK, and they used it as part of their marketing campaign. And you take it because that's a huge first order that was injecting us into the industry. Making 20,000 gummies without a kitchen was challenging. So
you're still making all these in the apartment now, are you?
We couldn't make that many, so we actually went to schools, we went to synagogues, churches, kind of any local building which had a big production kitchen, and asked if we could rent it out by the day, because it wasn't what it is now for food businesses. Whilst there was still a lower barrier to entry in terms of starting up, the kitchen space, the kind of shared working spaces weren't available like they are now. And so we were making them in a production space, then driving them to a holding space where we'd lay them out to cure, because making the product was really hard and keeping them stable. We had no idea how to do it. And when we were on the market stall, we were making them and selling them within the same day. So we never had seen kind of what happens to them over time. And then on top of that, we had to individually package them. And now we know that actually the molecular structure of a high alcohol gummy is really precarious, and it needs really specific humidity conditions, temperature conditions. It's like making chocolate and not allowing it to bloom. We didn't know that. We had no idea. So, one of the times we managed to get a space in a school that was on Easter break, and we used it for 5 days, and we were smashing them out. We were on such a roll, and we'd made about 6,000 of our 20,000. And overnight, a cleaner had gone in and turned off the humidifiers, put up the heating, and we came back in and we had 4,000
just liquid
melted.
everywhere. So, all right, I don't want to go on too much about the bads, right? Give me some positivities here, because you've raised a huge amount of money.
Yeah, so over the last 2.5 years, we've raised £2.5 million.
Is that all in, sorry, that's over the time period?
So we raised 250, and then we raised another 100, which was a bit of a bridging amount, and then we raised 2 million last year.
And did you do all that by approaching VCs, or was any of that crowdfunding, or what way did you do that?
We didn't do crowdfunding. We so the first 200...
I would have thought something like yours would have been ideal for something like that, because it's so, a big network of people.
I totally get why people crowdfund. You're building a fan base. I think for us, we had been given advice to keep our cap table very low. And when you crowdfund, whilst, you have someone like Cedars sitting on your cap table, you still got to communicate on quite a regular basis to 5,000 individuals.
Yeah, of course.
In some situations. And also because it was just at the beginning of when crowdfunding was a thing, I didn't really know what the long-term reaction would be to it. Would it be hard to sell then to a private equity or a bigger business if you've then got to deal with a crowdfunder? We didn't know what would happen. There were no kind of projected results or trends on what could happen. So we wanted to keep it more traditional, and we actually raised through 4 private individuals who I
a lot of money to raise.
Networked. The first lot of investments always the hardest, I found, because we didn't do friends and family. I think quite a few people can field out 10 grand from a couple different people, whereas like the people in our family network didn't have available cash resource. We kind of had to go to a next layer. And a lot of them were first-time investors, which was tricky because you are selling them on the ambition, but it's high risk.
Yeah, of course.
And first-time investors don't necessarily know emotionally what that feels like. And our investors have been really supportive of us, very trusting, have really stayed out of it, have been there to emotionally support us through harder times.
Well, it's clearly paid off.
Yeah, well, they've been brilliant.
And
the second round of investment was through a VC fund, but it was 2 individuals who I was speaking with, and they used that as their sort of portal of investing. And I met them because we did a product called Trump Sucks about 2.5 years ago. So when Trump first got in, I'm half American, and I was getting a bit frustrated that kind of startups were sitting on the fence around politics and having an opinion. And we're an adult brand, so we can be polarizing in some of our opinions. Like, we're not trying to be a crowd pleaser. We do alcoholic gummies. We're not saving lives. And we thought it'd be funny to basically launch a lollipop as a limited edition product in the shape of Trump's head. And it was just punny. We made 500. It was like a moment with Trump that's easier to stomach than any others.
Exposure as well.
It was really fun, and we thought, we'll get a bit of PR. It might go in the Metro, and we'll sell 500 lollipops, and then all profits will go into Planned Parenthood. So it wasn't a profit generator. It was just to show a brand equity. And it got picked up by George Takei, who's a famous Trekkie actor in America, and it had 4.5 million shares in 3 days.
Wow.
It went viral. We sold £20,000 worth of lollipops.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nuts. And we were a team of 4, and we were trying to fulfill £20,000 worth of orders. And there was one individual who'd basically spent £2,000 on them. This is pre-GDPR, but I sent him an email and I was like, I Googled him, he was based in New York, you know, I happened to be going out to New York the following week for a friend's Broadway play. So I was like, oh, let's grab coffee. I'm so interested to see why you wanted so many lollipops. He'd been really active with the Hillary campaign, and we built up a really good relationship, and he basically rallied the investment for the second round.
So what's next for you guys?
So we're launching Smith & Sinclair in the US.
Yeah.
So I move out there in August.
Very big move for you guys.
Really exciting, yeah. We've got 2 new products coming to our product portfolio.
Okay. Anything you can tell us yet?
Well, so we are expanding Fizz to have this Key Royale, which is blackcurrant and glittery. So that's fun. The other range will be a surprise, but you'll see it soon enough. And then we're also going into France, Spain, Italy, and Germany.
Mel, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm not going to pretend I'm disappointed that there's no gummy bears on the show.
Sorry.
Best of luck with everything in America.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.